What's going on, guys? In this video, we're going over part 3 in the self-mastery series. This time we're focusing on the emotional body and how to master your emotions and your subjective state in the world. Before we get into that, my name's Keith. I made this channel to help men create their ideal lives through self-mastery. Be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos, because I'm putting out new videos every single day. So let's get into this. For those of you who haven't yet seen it, the first episode of this self-mastery series, I gave like a rundown of exactly what it means to have self-mastery, considering that's the topic of my channel, is helping you create your ideal life through self-mastery. I wanted to get specifically into this topic, so I'll put that video right here so you can watch it if you haven't yet. But in this one, like I said, we're getting into the emotional body, as I call it. You could also consider it the subjective part of your mind, whereas the intellectual part of your mind is the more objective side of it. The thing about subjectivity that's interesting is it gets a bad rap in our society because we like to consider ourselves these rational beings who use science to make every decision. The thing is, that's absolutely not true. We make all of our decisions primarily emotionally. Very rarely do we actually act completely rationally and objectively. So as much as you want to deny it, the subjective part of reality is actually, in my opinion, far more important than the objective part of reality. You can think of it like this. The subjective interpretation of something could be, for example, let's say you see a chair, right? So you go see a chair, and the subjective part of your mind thinks that the chair represents a place to sit down. Well, if that's what you want to do. If you want to sit down, then your body, your subjective mind sees the chair as a place for you to sit your body down. Whereas your objective mind, it doesn't see the meaning that you're ascribing to it through the subjective mind. So all it sees is chair, and even more objective than chair, it sees what the chair's made out of. It sees the frame, the design, the geometric shape, the more objective facts of the chair. But the thing about objectivity and facts is that facts in themselves don't mean anything unless we apply a meaning to them, and that's done through the subjective experience. So basically what the subjective mind is going to do is it's going to determine for you how you should orient yourself in the world and what matters to you based on the feeling states you want to create and the things you want to create in your life. And typically that is based off of the feeling you think you're going to get out of having it. This is also the part of the mind that has to do with the law of attraction. So talking about manifestation, visualizing, because this has to do with your emotions. Your emotions are the subjective part of your being, and your emotions are energy in motion. They emit vibrations. Your thoughts emit vibrations, and they attract back to you like things. And depending on how you're thinking, you're going to bring back things like that. So if you're thinking negative, you're going to bring more negative. If you're thinking positive, you're going to start to bring more positive into your life. This part of the mind is going to be the part that's responsible for how much wealth you create, what kind of relationships you have, and if you're able to maintain them. Your emotional body and the energetic frequency that it puts out also has a profound impact on the health of your physical body. For example, if you're somebody who has had energetic imbalances when it comes to sexuality, you've had issues with sex in the past, they've shown that chronic lower back pain can be linked to that. And I know for a while when I was younger, back when I had issues with this area of my life, I was chronically having back pain. Like I would get it like once every month or so, and it would be like sometimes debilitating to the point where I could not stand up like straight. I'd have to sit down in a chair for like a day or two at a time. It was pretty bad, and I figured out that it was an emotional issue. It wasn't like I had an actual spinal problem. So once I get that fixed, once I cleared up my issues with that area of my life, that problem went away. So let's get specifically into some practices involved when it comes to the emotional body, the subjective mind. I've got 5 big ones down here. There's a lot of practices for this, things like affirmations that are just designed to orient your thinking correctly, things like that. But I've got 5 big ones down here. The first one being meditation. Meditation is about raising your vibration, right? So when you meditate, when you clear your mind, when you get your thinking mind to stop telling you all these stories about things, you can get more present to the moment, and as a result, your emotional state will rise naturally, because the emotional state of being present to the moment is a state of real positivity and love and good feelings. And so if you can get your own egoic mind out of the way, you'll feel more of that. So meditation's big. Spiritual practices. emotional and self-awareness, emotion code, and visualization. So those are the 5 that I've got down here that have to do with the subjective mind. Let's get a little more into them. Like I already went into with meditation, it's about raising your vibration, all right? A lot of people do these guided meditations where they actually visualize inside the meditation, and that can be beneficial if you want to go for that. Personally, I used to do that, and I found that it wasn't very helpful because I still never really got out of my mind. So I'm still just thinking the whole time. I never really rose my vibration. So if I wasn't already in a positive state, I wasn't going to get into a positive state by doing that. So what I found is that I do best when I do mindfulness meditation, something that is about detaching my thoughts, clearing my mind, and getting present to the moment. And then from there, I can start to think with more clarity about what it is I want and create that vision in my mind and stay focused on that. But you might be different. Maybe you prefer doing guided meditations and things like that. But I absolutely believe that meditation has been one of the biggest things to help me in my life and raising the way I feel about myself and the world around me and my goals and creating them. Meditation has been essential to that. And I always hate saying that because it seems so cliche because everybody's on the meditation kick these days. But it really is such an awesome thing, and you really should be doing it. Next one, spiritual practices. I'm not necessarily big on any big particular religion, but I am big on the fact there's obviously, I think it's just obvious that there's something beyond us out there, and you have to believe in that. And so having some kind of connection to that, and when it comes down to religious practices, religion is a very subjective experience. It's not an objective fact. Like as a scientist, I can't look out and say, where is God, for example, and you can point God out as an objective fact. God is something beyond the intellect, and it's a subjective experience for each person. So spiritual practices are on here, and I have found personally that the more I get involved in some kind of spiritual practice, which to me is just trying to tune in to something beyond me, the divine, I find that I feel better. I find that things come to me easier. I find that I get kind of intuitive nudges on things to do. And I'm not the first one to suggest this. Napoleon Hill talked about this in Think and Grow Rich. It's been mentioned by numerous people throughout the ages. It's a serious thing. It's just when you quiet your mind, you can start to hear the voice of the divine, something beyond you. And I really encourage you to start trying to practice something spiritual. Emotional and self-awareness is also involved in this part of the body. The reason being, obviously, we want to be aware of the emotions we're feeling so we can detach from them, so we can create the states we want. Because like I talked about in my my video review on the book Power versus Force and some of the concepts in it, he talks about in there how your emotions and the way you feel and your level of consciousness are going to create the world around you. They're going to create the things you see, and they're going to create the things you bring into your life, the things you derive meaning from. It's all oriented based on how you're feeling. So it's very important to get in control of your emotions and figure out how to raise them and get to the place you want to feel. Also with that self-awareness can be like, you'll notice in your life, if you look, that you do a lot of things that you don't really know why you're doing them. And that's a lack of self-awareness. And everybody's like this. But just start asking yourself questions like, why am I doing this? What am I getting out of this? What part of me is feeling satisfied by this? A lot of times ego's involved. Social media, for example, people don't even think about what they're doing when they're doing social media. Half the time it's like, I got to get this picture up, I got to do this thing to get this thing, and it's all about validation. It's this ego mechanism. It doesn't really make you feel good. It's like you're kind of outsourcing your self-esteem to the world to try and tell you you're valuable rather than believing it for yourself. And that's a lack of self-awareness because you don't even realize why you're doing it a lot of times. Nobody really does until they sit back and ask the question, and nobody wants to do that because then they have to face themselves in the mirror. And then you do all kinds of ugly things, right? And everybody does it. It's your shadow. The Carl Jung, the psychologist, talked about your shadow. He invented that concept. It's the part of you that you don't want to admit is there. But becoming more aware of that is part of the subjective experience and integrating that into your personality so that you can act appropriately. Emotion code. I talked about emotion code. I did a video on the emotion code already, but the emotion code it's about releasing trapped emotions. So as I said, your body, your emotions are energetic frequencies. Your body on a quantum level is just vibrating, it's energy vibrating at very rapid paces so that it appears solid essentially, but it's actually 99% empty space. So basically what the emotion code's about is specific emotions from traumatic events in your life are going to lodge energetic frequencies in your body, which are going to weigh you down, which are going to cause you to go back to certain specific emotions that aren't positive. And the emotion code's about releasing those. If you want to learn more about that and get into detail on how you can release these trapped emotions, click the video right here. Because it's an in-depth topic and it's a lot to get into, so I don't want to make this video too long, so I'm going to leave that for that one. The last one I had down here, visualization. Visualization is part of raising your emotions. It's also about asking the question, what is it I want? And when you ask that question, the subjective mind can get involved, because something you want is not objective. An objective thing is just the fact of the matter of the thing. There's from an objective perspective, nothing's really good or bad. It's just a thing that occurred. It's just a thing that exists. It's just a bit of information, essentially. The subjective mind is the one that says, what do I want? What do I not want? All those things. So visualization is about getting clear on what you want. And when you do that, that orients the subjective mind, which orients your experience, and the things that your mind starts to pick up on in your life are the things that it will derive meaning from based on your objectives that you're trying to get to. So like, try this practice. This will really help you out. I don't think it's magical, but I do think it's just simply your mind picking up on this. But just start to ask yourself, maybe like next time you go out, start to think about like a red car or something like that, and then be driving along, just doing your thing, and you'll start to notice how you just see red cars everywhere. And it's like the red cars were already there, but as you focused on it in your mind, you caused your mind to derive some meaning from the fact that it saw red cars, and so it started to pick it up, because there's millions and millions of bits of information your mind could be picking up on at any time, and it picks up on, I think 40 is the amount that your conscious mind can detect at any one time. So most, like 99% of your reality is being ignored at all times. The reason you're watching this video is because you found something meaningful out of it, whereas you're ignoring, say, the temperature in the room, your breathing, the color of the floor, the texture of the floor, the scuff on the wall, whatever it is. You're ignoring all that because you're not deriving meaning from it. And you're deriving meaning from this video, so you're watching it and listening to it. And so visualization is basically about orienting your meaning circuits. I do believe that there is a kind of a balance to the whole idea of manifesting and bringing things to you versus also going out and getting them. And I think they work hand in hand. And in this case, I think when it comes to visualization, it's about noticing the correct things. And that does have to do with tuning your mind to the right channel, the right frequency, energetically and emotionally, which will allow you to see those things. It'll allow you to see opportunity rather than scarcity, things like that. So it's really big. So like I said yesterday, guys, doing all of these practices at once is not some it's not some magic pill that suddenly tomorrow you're going to feel amazing. But when it comes to self-help, growing yourself in all forms, it's a gradual process. Whereas most things that are short-term benefits are long-term detriments, like getting drunk or not having a good sleep schedule or not exercising, all these different things. But these practices and consistently doing them will have profound impacts over time. It's actually called Kensho. It's the idea of the slow unfoldment of yourself. And that's basically what you're doing when you do these self-growth processes. Self-mastery is about Kensho. It's the slow unfolding of yourself and creating your ideal self and your ideal life by mastering yourself. So guys, I don't want this video to get too long. Leave a like if you got something out of this video so we can reach more guys with this message and hopefully help them out as well. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss tomorrow's video on the intellectual body. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.